So have dealt with a lot of families in that the revenues of the business are 10 to 20, 30 million, even 60, 50, $100 million of revenue. But a lot of times, where that goes is they're really still focused on doing. And so it's, where is that tipping point where it's like, we really need to start focusing on these things and not just running the business. We have to be worried about running the family. And I know it's not always a dollar amount, but, I would think that there's times when it becomes important. Where would you weigh in on that?
Well, I think the tipping point becomes somewhat generational. So if you think about the founders generation, is really all about building the business, and in some ways protecting the family members from the anxiety of the ups and downs that you have in the early days of a business. And then, when you move to the next generation, the sort of sibling generation, depending on how many siblings, depending on their involvement, it may start to happen there. But certainly by the third generation, um, everyone starts to see that these communication issues and figuring out how we're going to operate together become more important, and someone in the family steps forward and says, maybe we should think about this, and if we want to stay connected as a family, if we want to be more structured, how do we do that? So when you think, so when we talk about family governance, a lot of people use the term family governance, and really at its essence, it's about how are we going to make decisions. And when you get to the point where it's not possible to just make decisions over coffee, or among a few individuals, when there is more complexity, that's the time to start thinking about structures.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different for every family, but just as one example, a family that was starting to be in that third generation and had a single board. So the operating board, if you will, had family representation, but they were recognizing that they really needed more independent expertise on the board. And so their evolution was to move into a structure where they could move to more of a family business board of directors, right, with more independence, and then create a family council that had some representation on the business board, but could be that bridge between the families, and family assembly, as it's often referred to, the bridge between all of those family shareholders and the business board. And so I think most people would say that tends to happen around the third generation.
Great. And I would throw out to you that it may happen between first and second generation when there's a great deal of success, and there's several in the next generation, or in the other piece that I would throw in is if there was a divorce, because that complicates, I have, how you're treating people. So it's not always a money thing, I say here, or a revenue driver. It's just when there's going to be complication, be proactive instead of reactive to it would be what you're recommending.
Yeah. Yes. And I would say it's seldom a money threshold. It's really more those dynamics. And you raise an important point about the so-called married in families, and various views about that and what their role will be. And you'll see many family businesses that have very successful sons-in-laws, daughters-in-laws who participate in the business. But each family culture is different about how closely they want to to hold that. So being explicit, so that it doesn't feel personal if there is a married in family member, and it's not about that person, it's about your philosophy overall in terms of how closely that you want to hold it. In some ways, if you think about policy, we talked about an employment policy, but there are a number of policies that you can develop, and those are really a way to anticipate thorny issues that could happen before they do. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, when you're trying to solve a problem, it feels so personal and so painful. So putting the work into anticipating where things could go wrong or be problematic in advance is a way to practice how to resolve issues in a principled way rather than kind of personal or positioned.
Sure. Everybody's familiar with the buy-sell agreement and
Mm-hmm.
prenups. Those are the reasons why we do them. We think about them in business and we think about them personally.